Hi everyone. You know, all this talk about FEMA camps for the last couple of years and right on up until this very day, the activity that's going on, I've tried to put it out of my mind, but it's time that I realize these things are for real. And all of my friends, I care about you, and I want you to know that they're real also, and exactly just what the government can do with the FEMA camps. FEMA's in charge of everything just about now, and all the president's got to do is sign a piece of paper, and the Attorney General sign a warrant, and then boom, they can do whatever they want to. If there was a, just say for example, if Kama Elenin was to do something, I'm not saying it is, I don't mean that, I'm using it as an example. Everybody in the whole wide world in the United States would be in a panic. Come on, get real, you know we would. Well, they have the right to put us in these FEMA camps and lock us up and do whatever they want to do. They have a right to arrest you if you haven't committed a crime and lock you up in a FEMA camp. You can Google this, you can look it up any way you want to. Just look it up. FEMA camps 2011. You can find videos where people have investigated places that are FEMA camps. That there are thousands and thousands and thousands of coffins. The first thing I want to do right now, though, is let you hear what President Obama thinks about all of this.
Both from the same man, both from President Obama. One speech that could have been billed as a ballad to the Constitution, a proclamation of American values, a repudiation of the lawless behavior of the last presidential administration, and another speech announcing a radical new claim of presidential power that is not afforded by the Constitution and that has never been attempted in American history, even by George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. Remarkably, President Obama today made both of those speeches simultaneously. Standing inside the National Archives in front of the actual original Constitution, President Obama delivered a blistering critique of the Bush administration, in which he called their actions and their legacy literally a mess.
Our government made a series of hasty decisions. Poorly planned, haphazard approach. Too often, we set those principles aside as luxuries that we could no longer afford. Our government made decisions based on fear rather than foresight. The decisions that were made over the last 8 years established an ad hoc legal approach for fighting terrorism that was neither effective nor sustainable.
An ad hoc legal approach for fighting terrorism that was neither effective nor sustainable. Ouch. Then, moments later, he announced his own ad hoc legal approach for fighting terrorism. President Obama today proposed something new, something called prolonged detention. Doesn't sound that bad, right? Prolonged detention. Did you ever see the movie Minority Report? It was based on a Philip K. Dick short story, came out in 2002. It starred Tom Cruise, remember? He played a police officer in something called the Department of Pre-Crime. Pre-crime is where people are arrested and incarcerated to prevent crimes that they have not yet committed.
Mr. Marks.
My mandate of the District of Columbia Pre-Crime Division. I'm placing you under arrest for the future murder of Sarah Marks and Donald Dubinos to take place today, April 22nd, at 0800 hours and 4 minutes.
No, I didn't do anything.
You didn't do anything, but you're gonna. Future murder. Creepy, right? Putting somebody in jail not for what they've done, but for what you're very sure they're going to do?
There may be a number of people who cannot be prosecuted for past crimes. In some cases because evidence may be tainted, but who nonetheless pose a threat to the security of the United States.
We're not prosecuting them for past crimes, but we need to keep them in prison because of our expectation of their future crimes.
Al-Qaeda terrorists and their affiliates are at war with the United States, and those that we capture, like other prisoners of war, must be prevented from attacking us again.
Prevented. We will incarcerate people preventively. Preventive incarceration. Indefinite detention without trial. That's what this is. That's what President Obama proposed today, if you strip away the euphemisms. One civil liberties advocate told the New York Times today, quote, "We've known this was on the horizon for many years, but we were able to hold it off with George Bush. The idea that we might find ourselves fighting with the Obama administration over these powers is really stunning." And it is stunning, particularly to hear President Obama claim the power to keep people in prison indefinitely with no charges against them, no conviction, no sentence, just imprisonment. It's particularly stunning to hear him make that claim in the middle of a speech that was all about the rule of law.
But we must do so with an abiding confidence in the rule of law. Our government was defending positions that undermine the rule of law to ensure that they are in line with the rule of law.
How can a president speak the kind of poetry that President Obama does about the rule of law and call for the power to indefinitely, preventively imprison people because they might commit crimes in the future? How can those two things coexist in the same man, even in the same speech? Well, that brings us to the self-consciously awkward, embarrassing part of this speech today. After condemning the Bush administration for what he called their ad hoc legal strategy for trying to make things seem legal that patently weren't, this is what President Obama proposed.
My administration has begun to reshape the standards that apply to ensure that they are in line with the rule of law. We must have clear, defensible, and lawful standards for those who fall into this category. We must have a thorough process of periodic review so that any prolonged detention is carefully evaluated and justified. Our goal is to construct a legitimate legal framework for the remaining Guantanamo detainees that cannot be transferred. Our goal is not to avoid a legitimate legal framework. In our constitutional system, prolonged detention should not be the decision of any one man. If and when we determine that the United States must hold individuals to keep them from carrying out an act of war, we will do so within a system that involves judicial and congressional oversight. And so going forward, my administration will work with Congress to develop an appropriate legal regime so that our efforts are consistent with our values and our Constitution.
You'll construct a legal regime to make indefinite detention legal. You will, what does he say? Develop an appropriate legal regime. So you can construct a whole new system outside the courts, even outside the military commissions, so that you...
This is a legal FEMA camp.
You can indefinitely imprison people without charges, and you'll build that system from scratch. What's that somebody said about ad hoc legal strategies? Just for context here, in the United Kingdom, where there isn't even a Bill of Rights, there's been a major debate about whether people can be held in preventive detention. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair wanted 3 months to be the outer limit for how long anyone could be held. There was a big political fight about it. Parliament ended up limiting that power to 28 days. 28 days is still the longest period of preventive detention that's allowed under law in any comparable democracy anywhere in the world. How long would President Obama's proposed preventive indefinite detention last? Well, he's not saying yet, but here's how he defines the threat that he says makes indefinite detention necessary.
Right now, in distant training camps and in crowded cities, there are people plotting to take American lives. That will be the case a year from now, 5 years from now, and in all probability 10 years from now.
10 years from now. So you could get arrested today and locked up without a trial, without being convicted, without being sentenced for, say, 10 years until the threat of your future.
And just remember, those 10 years have already started years ago, and that's why these FEMA camps are popping up, and they're in disguise, and you don't even know they're there.
Criminal behavior passes? Prolonged detention, he's calling it. This was a beautiful speech from President Obama today with patriotic, moving, even poetic language about the rule of law and the Constitution, and one of the most radical proposals for defying the Constitution that we have ever heard made to the American people.
Well, with all of that said, I'm going to post links to this. But look at some of these orders that are going on. I want you to just look over them. And all the president's got to do is sign something, and all the attorney general's got to do is sign a warrant. If we had a bad enough disaster to happen, or any kind of the ordinary happening to happen, and everybody kind of went ballistic, They could do this to us folks. It allows the government to seize control over all communications, transportation, highways, seaports, electrical power, gas, petroleum, fuel, and minerals. There's one thing that I didn't know that if you were aware of, and I read all of these, you're just going to like flip out when you read them all. Allows the government to take over railroads, inland waterways, public storage. I mean, they can even take away your car. And it's up here too. They can stop everything from running. And it designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of every person. Allows the government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions. That's already in progress, of course. Allows the government to mobilize civilians into work brigades under government supervision. Allows the government to take over all food resources and farms. Now that's scary. That's probably why they've been tucking away all these seeds in all of these bunkers. It just goes on and on and on, folks. But before I get out of here, I'm from North Carolina, and I wanted to go down here. This shows you where all the camps are that they've already got in place. Camp Lejeune, New River Marine Airfield facility has renovated, occupied World War II detention compounds in Mock City that closely resembles any town USA. You don't even know it's there, but I'm sure you have all heard in the past years how they've mocked the city and had drills that went on. Okay. Fort Bragg Special Warfare Training Center, renovated World War II detention facilities. Andrews Federal experiment in putting a small town under siege began with the search hunt for survivalist Eric Rudolph. I remember this. I lived not too far from here when this happened, and no persons were allowed in or out of town without federal permission, and travel through town was highly restricted. Most residents compelled to stay in their homes. Unregistered Baptist pastor from Indiana visiting Andrews affirmed these facts. That was the guy, Eric Rudolph, remember, back in the late 80s. He was the, I believe they said, the ex-Marine that could kill anybody. I mean, he was just a ravaged, savage killer. He had it drilled in his brain, and he did something the government didn't like, and he left the Marines and went AWOL, and they tried to capture him up in the mountains of North Carolina. Anyway, folks, please take heed to this. Look it up. You'll see the camps all around. Videos coming in every day where these things are still going up where you'd never expect them to be. So, the FEMA camps are real. FEMA has more authority to do more things than you know of. Please be safe and be careful, and let's pray that nothing bad happens, because then we're all in trouble. I'm going to leave you with this. Be safe, be blessed, and God bless America.